What I want to talk about today, can you all hear me up there, or do I need to hold the mic?
We're having a hard time hearing, sweetie. It's still not very...
All right. So what I want to talk about today is I have seen a pattern with people that I've been working with privately and pretty consecutively, especially this week, where they are forgetting to practice the most useful, beneficial thing that anyone could ever do. Do you have any guess what that thing may be that they are forgetting to practice?
Watch.
Observation.
Yes. Observing the mind. Now, I have talked about this on numerous occasions, but it is so worth talking about again. Guys, we established a couple weeks ago that there is not one thing that your mind says to you, about anything outside of you, the situation that is happening with you and around you. There is nothing that the mind says that is real. Now, there may be some snippets of facts, but there is absolutely nothing that is real. Because I tell you, if you were to pull all of your emotional state out of it, all of your story, all of your perceptions, and all of your judgments, the facts that would remain would be so flimsy and so boring that you would look at yourself and go, why did I get myself worked up into a frenzy about that? You have got to begin to understand, if you are wanting to evolve beyond the place that you have been at for most of your life, you have got to get that concept that the mind is not real and there is not a shred of truth to it. Now, third, when you begin to grasp that concept, you also can then begin to observe what the mind is saying to you without participation. I went Friday. I actually took some time for myself on and I went to the park, to Piedmont Park. Were any of you out Friday seeing the weather and how quickly and rapidly it was changing? I noticed without a shadow of a doubt that the sky and the weather on Friday was just like what was happening inside this old mind of mine. 1 minute, the sun would be shining, it would be beautiful, and within 30 seconds to 5 minutes later, it would be cloudy, and it would get chilly, and within 30 seconds to 5 minutes later, it would be back sunny again, and back warm again. And I watched how the sky was changing, just like the thoughts were changing. And the thoughts were so random, they were all over the board. And I just continued to watch them, and without the participation, the mind began to really get upset that I wasn't participating with it. I watched that happen. I had to remind a half a dozen people or more this week that the mind, they kept saying, well, this is happening, and what do I do with it? And I would say, you do absolutely nothing. But, and they kept on trying to defend why it was happening. And I explained to them, even though they have heard it on numerous occasions, that that mind is just like a incredibly rabid dog that is locked up in this cage, that is adamant about getting some sort of comment, some sort of response, some sort of food, some sort of anything. And guys, when you don't feed that dog, what is the first stage that happens to that dog when you stop feeding it?
It gets more wild, more vicious.
Exactly, Sandra. It gets more wild and more vicious. And so what was happening with these people was they had practiced this process of observing the thoughts, and they had been doing it for quite some time. But now that dog had gotten more mean, and that dog had gotten more aggressive. And then that is when they came to me and say, well, what do I do now? You still do absolutely nothing. Eventually, if you stop feeding that dog, yes, it will get meaner in the beginning. But over time, if you continue to practice what you started off with doing in the first place, that dog will become weaker and weaker and weaker until it doesn't have the strength to do anything. It is all in the observation. You've got to get it. If you are wanting any level of liberation from life happenings, you have got to get it. Stop participating. Just observe it. And in that observation, you will see that rabid dog doing anything that it can to get attention, to get food, and to tell you that you are less than divine. Shaitan sent me something this morning that I want to read, because I agree with most of it. The soul is the source of the perception of self as it navigates through the physical. There are many definitions, but the driving force of soul creation, while in spirit and flesh, is the thought process. Thus, whatever moment you find yourself in has been created by you. Therefore, the conditions around you have not created the situations. You have created the conditions that place you where you are. Blaming the conditions will only